episode 132 of the podcast. This week I'm talking about a particular dog that I worked with this week. This particular dog had a history of being kind of cranky and doesn't like being dried. And I want to walk you through the way that I work through that and how I try to help this dog feel better about it. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I was working with a Westie this week. Now, I'm not always doing house calls. Sometimes I'm in a shop environment. And I got asked, hey, this little guy, could you finish drying him and put him in a trim? He can be a little cranky, not necessarily good. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because that can mean a bunch of things. Each of us have to assess the dog in front of us on this day. Now, a heads up about having a past is great to know, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you know how this dog is going to respond today. This dog may be great. This dog may be worse. This dog may be the same. But what I was told, he can be a little cranky, not necessarily good, doesn't like the dryer. We're going to have to see. Now, there are a bunch of factors that I think about when I'm assessing a dog. So I just want to talk you through it. Let's think about those. What are we going to think about when we have this situation come up? Because it comes up. It comes up every day in grooming shops. First of all, there are a bunch of factors, and the first one is the individual who's doing the grooming. Me as an individual, or you as an individual. I want you to kind of think about that. That's part of our factors, because a different person, none of us do things the same way. We all do things that are a little bit different. And so I want you to be thinking about the fact that we as individuals could be more challenging or less challenging. Now, that could be because of something that we do. That could be the order that I do things in. Or maybe I'm kind of a loud person, or maybe I'm kind of a quiet person, or maybe I'm kind of a stern person, or maybe I'm too silly of a person, right? It could be personality. It could also be the wide variety of looks that humans have. We have different sizes, we have different genders, we have different color skin, we have accents, we have different ages. Some of us have hair on our faces, some of us don't. And so you think about the person, as a factor. Because there are dogs that prefer a man. There are dogs that are really thrown off by someone with an unusual accent. There are dogs that find that anybody other than their own human is pretty scary. There are dogs that don't like people at all. So just us as a human, as a person, can be a factor. Another factor, how is this dog feeling today? How physically comfortable or uncomfortable is this dog? And I want you to think, is he sore? We don't know. We need to think about that. He could be kind of sore. Maybe that's part of this history of being cranky. Some of our dogs are just not put together well. How is he feeling today? Is he excited? He's a little terrier. We bred them to be fast and ferocious and super excitable, right? Is this environment really exciting? Is he exhausted from, say, listening to thunderstorms all night or fireworks all night? As I record this, it is now July 5th, and last night was a whole lot of fireworks, and I know that one of my guys, the guy who's nervous about it, is still calming down from that. He's acting all normal, but I'm pretty sure that if we were to draw blood and check levels, he still has some body chemistry changes going on from being scared all night. So, what has this dog been going through? How physically comfortable is he today? And also, is he just plain stressed by being dropped off? Which is something we're seeing more and more of right now because so many dogs during COVID didn't quite get the socialization that they normally would have at critical stages. Doesn't mean it can't happen, just means that it's not necessarily something they're comfortable with yet. So we need to work on those things. But that's all part of the how is this dog feeling? Cranky Westie doesn't like dryers. What does that mean? Well, we need to look further. Look further. Another factor, this is a third group of factors. How complicated are his grooming needs today? And what I'm getting at here are things like, is he matted? Are his nails super crazy long, which also could be physically uncomfortable for his toes and for his legs and for his shoulders, for his hips? Is he months past due? Does he just have tons of coat that we have to worry about? Is he shedding like crazy? How much work are we going to need to be doing with this guy? Is he super dirty? Is he just really, really dirty? Been digging in the yard, paws have pine sap stuck in them. You get the idea. But we need to think about, if we're assessing this dog who's kind of cranky, doesn't really like drying, isn't necessarily really good for any of this, we need to think about what his grooming needs are today. Because if we're already assuming that he's going to have some trouble somewhere, he has a history of having trouble somewhere, then we also need to think about what kind of grooming needs does he have and prioritize them. What's the priority? What priorities do we have if somebody becomes restless, if somebody becomes overly silly or aggressive or starts to panic, or what are our priorities going to be? Now, here is another factor, something else for us to think about that we don't often think about. But is the grooming environment overwhelming? Not just does he like grooming, does he not like grooming? I want you to start thinking about all of these things happening all kind of at the same time. The grooming environment. Are there a few loud dogs? A couple of dogs barking for a little terrier could be really, really affecting him that day. What terrier doesn't want to join in with the howls and songs of his people, So are there a couple of loud dogs? That might be something that you just put notes in that, hey, he really needs to be booked on a quieter day. Are there multiple loud noises, like loud dryers and a shop vac and, all sorts of things happening all at once? Some dogs are really overstimulated by that. Are there lots of dogs in sight? Again, dogs can be really, really overstimulated and then being asked to let us do stuff that they weren't really comfortable with anyway. If you are a home groomer, maybe you have only one dog in your shop at a time, or your house call like I am. So, usually all those other noises are pretty minimal, but we still have to think about things like FedEx, UPS, the mailman. People think nothing of having the plumber come or an electrician come or someone working on the house on that day that you're there. Are there landscapers in the neighborhood? What kind of neighborhood noise is happening? Are the kids out? Did a motorcycle just go down the road? Think about the environment. All those other things happening at the same time could be part of what makes this dog have a hard time coping with the grooming process. Now, here's another one. I have a fifth category for us to look at. What has this dog learned about the grooming process? What is his real history? What has he learned? Has he learned, yep, this is scary, they're just going to keep pushing you, they're going to keep pushing you? When somebody defines a dog as cranky or doesn't like, I'm already wondering a lot of things. How does he respond and how do you respond to him? Because he responds and we respond to that and he responds to that and he responds to this. And, we're all just responding to each other, whether we realize it or not. It's this big circle. So I kind of want to know, what has he learned about the grooming process? So I'm going to be watching for that while I'm using my tools. Has desired behavior been increasing or decreasing? Has unwanted behavior been increasing or decreasing? And those may sound like the same thing, but they are slightly different. Building a wanted behavior, a desirable behavior, will help you to meet behavioral goals. But decreasing unwanted behaviors doesn't necessarily work toward what we ultimately want, because a brand new unwanted behavior may take its place. For example, it may be that this dog is no longer trying to bite, but now screams the entire time or tries to twist away. Okay, so you might have solved the he's trying to actually hurt us part of the biting, but you haven't solved the he's calm, comfortable, and cooperative part. Right? Now he's still at a risk to himself if he's twisting and screaming and all those other things. So just decreasing unwanted behavior, you know what? That's not the fast track. So think about how he is for grooming what he does in the grooming process and what he's been learning about it. And if you don't know much about the history, assume they're going to have difficulty with some of the grooming process. Watch for it, wait for it, and respond to it by trying to meet the 3 C's. Calm, comfortable, and cooperative, because that's ultimately going to help them calm down. And in the next part, we're going to step away from my normal sciencey kind of talking about it, and we're going to story tell about what happened with this particular dog. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. This time, I'm going to get anthropomorphic. I'm going to try to attribute some human thoughts and perspectives to an animal that really can't talk to me and cannot confirm or deny my findings. But hang in there, because I think this is all based on my observations. And I think that for many of us, if we can relate to what we think is happening and take a moment to kind of say, all right, how would I feel in this process? Or what do I think might be happening? And try to see things from a dog's point of view. I think sometimes it's really helpful. And this is based on what I observed of his responses and how he responded to my reactions to his responses. I know that's clear as mud, but I want you to get a feel for how a dog may be perceiving our actions. And they may or may not be trying to work with you. So I had this little guy on my table, and before I turned the dryer on, right, I was just told he's kind of cranky and he doesn't like drying, I held the nozzle near him before I turned the dryer on and said, dryer's next. These are some of the things that I do when I'm working with dogs, is that I'll start talking things through. Like, yep, dryer's next. He has seen a dryer before. He looked at that nozzle, like, and again, anthropomorphic, but come on, really? Guys, these dogs that have been dried before, especially if they don't like it, you will notice if they have a reaction to just the nozzle. They've seen it before. So I held the nozzle up next to his face, let him check it out, right? Hey, look what I've got, you know? Then I lowered the nozzle away from the table and turned the dryer on. Loud noise, turn the dryer on, which I like to do anyway. I'll usually say loud noise when I'm going to turn something on, whether it be a dryer or even a clipper, but I kind of try to turn things on away from a face and then bring something noisy toward a face or toward their body, unless I know that they're like super rock solid and they don't mind. So anyway, I say loud noise and I turn on the dryer. The dryer is below the table, facing the floor. Okay, now I bring the nozzle up to him. And I want you to think about observing the dog. Now I bring the nozzle up to the table. There's a little bit of circling and jumping around. Nothing aggressive. Circling, jumping around, like, okay, dude, you know. So I put my hand on him, started to pet his shoulder a little bit, lower the dryer down below the table again. Okay, let's pet you a little bit. You okay? Gently petting. You know what? There are times when you're trying to figure out what a dog likes. In this particular case, he liked gentle petting. Now again, anthropomorphic, Chrissy, how do you know what he likes? Well, because he settled down. He could have avoided my petting. He could have kept swirling and goofing off, but he calmed down, kind of leaned into it a little bit, like, yeah, a little bit of a scritch on the shoulder. This is kind of nice. Again, anthropomorphic, but let's try to see from this dog's point of view. So anyway, so then he's calm, dryer's still on. So I raised the dryer to the table, a little bit of circling, but nothing like it was before. So I continue to pet his shoulder while I'm drying his hip. Start drying his hip, continuing to pet his shoulder, and he's actually being pretty good. Again, I'm thinking about his behavior more than I'm thinking about perfection on drying a hip. I want you to be thinking about this as my process. So I'm trying to walk you through it like a story. Now, here's where the neat stuff happened. Oh, so neat. This is wicked neat. I know, my New England girl is starting to come out with the wicked neat. Wicked, everything's wicked. I'm drying. I move the dryer around a little bit. Now, he turned to me and raised a front paw to my hand. Just gently placed his front paw on my hand. How neat is that? Now you guys might be thinking, well, that's not neat. That sounds irritating. I'm not trying to dry your paw right now. But I want you to think about raising a paw and gently putting it on my hand. He's trying to negotiate a deal. Think about it that way. He's like, oh my God, human, please stop. right? Put a paw on my hand. Now, for a dog who is known for being cranky and not liking the dryer, good on him for even thinking that maybe a person's going to listen. Because, maybe in his past people haven't listened. But he put his paw on my hand. Gently, just kind of a little bit. So what did I do? I was like, oh, hey, buddy. I lowered the dryer and I patted him. Now, I want you to think about his choices to get me to stop drying him. What kind of choices does he have? Well, he's a little Westie, known for being cranky. He certainly knows he has teeth, and he's got a face that could get there and use those teeth. So while you might think, why would I want to encourage putting your paw on me to get me to stop? I do want to encourage him trying to communicate to me, and I want him to start trusting me that I might listen. So in this stage, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll give you that. And I lowered the dryer and I petted him. You okay, buddy? And I gotta tell you, again, anthropomorphic, when I do that, when I listen to a dog, when they try to negotiate with me, when they're like, okay, can we please stop? And I listen and I pay attention to that and I back off a little bit, something really interesting happens because they look shocked because that has not been their experience in the grooming process. Sometimes they just look straight up shocked. I honestly think that most dogs, if they were to talk to other dogs, they'd be like, no, people only know good dog and no, no, no. They don't know anything in between. You can't talk to people. People aren't going to notice. You either have to use your teeth or growl or something. They're never, ever, ever going to notice because people just aren't going to pick up on it. They aren't that bright. I'm sure that our dogs think we're just not that bright. So when you think about this trying to okay, I'm going to give this a try. If I put my foot up here, will you please give me a break? And yeah, I gave him a break. So what happens in that moment that I remove the dryer and pet him a little bit? From a training point of view, I am going to say I saw a behavior asking me to stop. And a very appropriate way to ask me to stop. That's a behavior that I want to increase, that I want to maintain, that I'd like to encourage, that I'd like to reinforce. Remember that reinforcement thing? Yep, so here's the training terminology. When I petted him for it, because I had already established he kind of likes petting him for it was positive reinforcement. I am now adding something to try to encourage that behavior, to encourage that asking again. So I petted him, but I also removed the dryer, which is negative reinforcement. Something removed. Negative and positive aren't about emotions. Negative and positive are like algebraic. They're adding and subtracting. I also removed the dryer, subtracted the dryer. That means that that's negative reinforcement, something removed to encourage the behavior. Essentially, I gave him a reward and I gave him a break at the same time, using both. See, the thing is, you don't have to pick just one thing. So, the other part of that is that we have to circle back to find out if we maintained or encouraged that behavior. Because right now it's just a theory. I'm just trying to encourage that behavior. We don't know until that circumstance comes up again. And that's where I think a lot of groomers don't quite understand, and dog owners in general, non-trainers have trouble with this one, that it's not about what I'm trying to do, it's about how the dog perceives it, and if it works for that individual dog. So when I brought the dryer back up, calmed him down, asked him to kind of hold still, was petting his shoulder and continued to dry, he was being really pretty good. When he turned around again and just gently put a paw on my hand to try it again, I rewarded it the same way. Hey buddy, gave him a little pet, brought the dryer down at the same exact time, so 2 types of rewards at the same exact time. And you know what? He really responded well to that. Now you might think, here we go. You might think, but that's not the finished behavior that we want. You are correct. I do not want him to constantly need breaks, and I don't necessarily want him to think, if I just tap your hand the whole time, maybe you'll stop everything. So I do need to build on that behavior. I'm going to need to help him relax and get more endurance on that drying and to dry longer, to switch areas, which I did. I was switching areas, going a little bit longer, and I'm encouraging him. He's doing great. I lower the dryer before he asks me to stop, before he raises his paw and touches me. So what happened there? Now I'm telling him, listen, I understand the rhythm of this, that you need more frequent breaks, but I'm not encouraging the paw touch at this point because I'm stopping before he has to ask for one. Again, we want to build a behavior that we want. He has a lot more grooming in his lifetime. He's got years and years and years worth of grooming left. We can spend time now teaching him to be good for it. So I dry a little bit longer and back off a little before he asks me to. Then I dry a little bit more and back off a little, back off even less. So when I say back off, it doesn't mean like we turn off the dryer and put the dog in a crate or go on the floor and have a playtime. Sometimes it's as simple as I'm drying your shoulder and I just move the dryer so it's not even on you anymore. And then back to a hip or back up near your ears or up at your chin, and then take the dryer down. Put the dryer like on the table. Face it at the table instead of facing at him. So I'm gradually building up a little bit more security with it, that he's feeling more and more comfortable. But he also, if I push too far, has been rewarded a couple times for simply putting a paw up and asking me to please give him a break. Instead of going to teeth, instead of swirling around, instead of any of that crazy baloney that we definitely do not want. So this is, from a dog's point of view, an entirely different drying session than what he thought it was going to be. And he was really pretty good. Now you might say, great, did you get him dry? And you know what? I decided to put him back in a crate and cage dry a little bit. And then take him out for a second round when I knew he was entirely dry and just do a little bit more. Okay? I got him to a point where he was damp. I got him brushed through. And I decided that he was better with a cage dryer. So I was just going to do a little bit of that. Again, this wasn't one of my house call ones because house call you really can't turn to a cage dryer. I mean, I guess I could, but I'm not going to. It's way too complicated to be at somebody's house and putting their dog in a crate and putting on a dryer and then doing what with my time, Anyway, so I gave him a break. I did not push him as hard as he would need to be pushed. I gave him a break. He learned in this one session there are ways to ask that are pretty polite. And, oh my God, sometimes people listen, right? We have to build some trust. And that's what's really important. I want him to start thinking, I can trust her. I don't need to use my teeth. I don't need to scream. I don't need to turn fast. I don't need to do anything threatening. I don't need to do anything aggressive. And I don't need to get all worked up. She's going to listen, and I feel safe. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.